are back in the news, and you know exactly what that means. It means we have clarity on what's going on with the San Francisco 49ers. Does it not? Well, maybe not so much. Maybe it's about as clear as mud. We're going to try to sift through these murky waters as we continue to creep just ever so closer to training camp. And of course, make sense of all the chatter out there on the interwebs. Let's get into it all right. Meow. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to see it. What is going down, SDS? Welcome in on a Tuesday show, which is actually going to be the first show of the week because I decided I wanted to take a little rest, a little breaky break from, all the quarterback conversations, everything in between. But I think, we can obviously talk about the talking points from all the talking heads, which, typically we got to get on here and we got to react and we have to make sense of it. We put the tinfoil hat on. What are they talking about? Does this make sense? Are they talking out of their behind? Is this sourced information? La, la, la. You know how it goes. We are, it's June 27th. You know how this goes. So, but you're starting to see the way things are working around here. You're starting to see the way things are working. Monday comes through. It's a fresh week. What are we going to talk about? What should the NFL media discuss? Well, let's go through some of the talking points. What is one of the top stories in the NFL? Well, one of the top stories, if not the top story in the NFL, is the 49ers quarterback position. So what makes sense? Well, we do know those San Francisco 49er fans, they love to talk about some quarterback. And you know what should we do? We should start on Monday. We'll do a little media blitz. We'll get Tom Pelissero to tweet. We'll get Albert Breer to talk about the 49ers quarterback, and we'll get Jeremy Fowler on ESPN, Rich Eisen show to talk about the 49ers quarterback. And then guess what? We're set up for discourse for the rest of the week. We've been force-fed our quarterback agenda, and I'm here to break it down because it's so important. Looking forward to it. And this was yesterday. Last week, we are now officially in the part of the offseason where we're getting to talk about who the quarterback is going to be in 2024. Aren't you excited? Aren't you just having a blasty blast with the states of 49ers talking points? I know you are. It's like it's like we can't escape it at this point. Doesn't matter which direction you run, where you're going. You can't hide from it. You can't run away. I watched the Signs yesterday. You guys remember that throwback movie, that the M. Night Shyamalan, Alien Invasion? They got to board the houses up. They board up all the windows. It's like, but the aliens still got in. They boarded everything up, made sure it was Loctite, but they still found a way to creep in. That's where we're at. And the tinfoil hats, 100%. The tinfoil hats from the Signs. We got ours right here. So perfect kind of correlation, because it doesn't matter how many boards we put up. they just find their way in. They get in there, and it's a great movie. I remember I saw that movie in theaters twice. I liked it so much. It's a great movie. I haven't watched it in super long. I don't know why. I decided to throw it on. I threw it on, doing some stuff around the house. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna throw Signs on. I want to get the blood kind of pumping a little bit. I was like, oh yeah, I remember. It was a good one. But just like the 49ers quarterback situation, there's a lot of questions like, what do they want? Why are they here? Why are they invading us? Are they friendly? It's kind of like the quarterback conversation. It's like, how do we make sense of this? This is how I'm making sense of the quarterback conversation because, again, unfortunately, I have the duty of talking about the San Francisco 49ers. So because of that, it's just glove, handshake emoji. You got to talk about the quarterback if you want to or you don't. So I don't want to spend the whole time talking about it. We've talked about it so much. But I want to kind of put into perspective of how I'm viewing it at this point and how I expect the news to come out, what I expect heading into training camp, and we'll kind of keep tabs if we agree, if we see it playing out like that. We'll just talk about it. Because as we know, Tom Pelissero put out a tweet yesterday. It was an update about Brock Purdy. It was a good update. Brock Purdy will be throwing. He's beginning his offseason program with Will Hewitt. Fantastic. Big fan of Will Hewitt. Got to talk to Will Hewitt for about 20 minutes at the NFL Combine. He was Anthony Richardson's pre-draft trainer. He was Brock Purdy's pre-draft trainer. So I got to talk to Will about both Brock and Anthony Richardson. Got to be able to pick his brain on what he was doing with both quarterbacks. And I developed a strong level of trust for Will and what Will is doing, the way he goes about his business, hearing what he talked about he was doing with Anthony Richardson and what he did with Brock Purdy leading up until the draft. So I got a lot of faith in him as a quarterback coach and a quarterback developer. And he's part of the QB. What is it? The QB country? Why am I blanking on it? What's QB collective? Kyle Shanahan's, the group of quarterback gurus. He's part of the QB collective. So Will Hewitt's a good one. So I knew that was coming. We talked about that at the NFL Combine. He was, and this was what? When was the Combine? March. He really didn't have too many hesitations about Brock Purdy, the UCL. I mean, again, he's candidly speaking, he's like, what do you know in March? Like, what was that? A couple weeks maybe removed from Brock Purdy's surgery, but he was like, yeah, we're going to work together. Everything's going to be cool. I don't have too many concerns with Brock's rebound because I asked him straight up. I was like, "Are you concerned about that?" He's like, "No, not really." He's like, I think everything's gonna go in a good direction. We're gonna figure it out." All right, cool. So fast forward to now, that news came out, and they're ready to begin that process. They're ready to begin actually putting in the work. So it's again another sign. So we have like just all these it's like mile markers, right? We got all these little markers that we have to hit in order for Brock Purdy to be fully cleared for football activities. So Brock hit another mark. Good stuff. And again, still putting Brock on track to be available either at the beginning of training camp or at some point in training camp. So the thought process is Brock Purdy will likely be cleared for full football activities, I would assume, sometime during training camp. And we'll obviously, those are going to be the markers that we continue to track. They're going to continue. Maybe next Monday, we're going to get another marker. And then the Monday after that, we'll get another marker. And then that following Monday, we'll get another marker so that we have something to talk about for that whole week. So that's really how I expect this whole quarterback conversation, narrative, everything in between to play out all the way up until training camp. Because now we're hearing the narrative start to basically develop around quarterback 2. That's, I don't think there's too much crazy things going on with Brock Purdy. I don't think there's too much being said that is like a surprise or anything that we should, I think everything's on par. And with all that being said, I think again, it has now become an agreed upon talking point that Brock Purdy will likely be the week 1 starter barring setbacks. And that's what we will continue to hear up until training camp. It's what we're going to continue to monitor in training camp. Once we actually get out there and get our eyes on them, is just how he's progressing, what the reps look like. Is he have the same velocity? Does he have better velocity? Is his accuracy taking a hit? Has his decision making taken a hit? Those will be additional markers added on when we come to evaluating Brock Purdy. But obviously, there's the narratives are spinning at quarterback too, right? And it's been spinning for a while. And this is how I take it. We aren't going to know until training camp. We're going to be fed some information. I think to help kind of condition the fan base to understanding what could be happening. I'm not sure if we're going to get a definitive Sam Darnold's quarterback 2, Trey Lance's quarterback 3. I mean, we've heard from Schefter about the trade market or lack thereof. We've heard again the constant narrative, whether it's people from within the organization or outside the organization, the Sam Darnold chatter is tangible at this point. And so this is how I'm going to try to keep my sanity all the way up until training camp, because this is how I truly believe it's going to play out. So heading into training camp, let's say, again, we're talking in hypotheticals now, and this is how I see it playing out personally. Brock Purdy, hopefully, will be cleared to play, cleared for football activities, meaning he can participate on 7-on-7, 9-on-7, 11-on-11, all team drills with pads. He can participate in. That is where I am setting the marker for the start of training camp. The next marker for quarterback 2, I expect Trey Lance to be quarterback 2. So again, when we go to training camp, one of the first things we're going to be reporting on is the order of operation. We're going to be seeing who takes snaps where. And this is all based on Brock Purdy being cleared for football activities, ready to go day 1. I anticipate it's going to be Brock at QB1, Trey at quarterback 2, and Sam at quarterback 3. But how long does that last? Maybe a week, maybe a couple days, maybe. But I really do think that's where they're going to start, right? It's going to start that way. And just like if you've been a part of a camp, if you played football, whether at college level, it's not maybe high school. I don't know. It's not quite the same in high school. I would say more so relatable to college. But like, I think that's going to be the initial pecking order, but that doesn't mean that's going to maintain. And again, with all the things that we keep hearing about Sam Darnold, That 1, 2, 3 rotation could flip on its head in day 2 or day 3. It really could. Just like we saw in OTAs. The 49ers started out the first couple practices with Trey Lance as the starter, and the second round of media availability, it was Sam Darnold as the starter. So it can flip. We already know they're splitting reps, and that was told to us a long time ago. They held true to it, and that will continue. So, however, what we do have to pay attention to, no matter what we hear, that's really how I see it playing out. Even if they do believe that Sam Darnold will take those reps ahead of Trey Lance, I still believe that Trey will still be at QB2 on day 1 as the start of camp. It doesn't mean he'll be there day 2 or day 3, but I think that's where they're going to start. They're going to start in that natural pecking order, and then they will make the switch a day 2, day 3, day 4, whatever it takes, because what we keep hearing about is that they like Sam Darnold. We know Kyle likes Sam Darnold. We continue to hear, whether it's from inside people who have connection to inside the organization or perceived connection to the organization, that they like Sam Darnold. And there's still a lot of questions surrounding Trey. So we'll figure that all out in training camp. That's the beauty of it. Is like I don't necessarily care at this current stage and who you root for. I don't care if you are Team Brock, Team Trey, or this rare group in the shadows that are maybe pro Darnold. I don't really care who you perceive to be the better quarterback. Go argue on Twitter. But how I perceive the actual quarterback hierarchy playing out based on football operation, based on Brock Purdy being available, cleared for football activities, based on natural pecking order and how they evolve that. That's how I see it. I see it going to be day 1 will be Brock, Trey, Sam. But like I said, we'll see how quickly Trey and Sam potentially flip. But that's where we're at. Welcome to football. Welcome to competition. Welcome to the NFL, where they don't give 2 craps about which quarterback you like, where that quarterback was drafted, and it's the nature of the business, right? So I know a lot of people spend a lot of time defending who they believe is the best quarterback, but honestly, it's kind of it's becoming a fool's errand, because how many times have you said this? How many times have you stated your case? And how many times can we regurgitate and say the same things over and over again? At a certain point, we have to reach a level of sitting back and just letting it play out. And that's where I'm at personally. I think Brock will be quarterback 1. I truly believe Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, whether how much I like Trey or how much I've disliked Sam Darnold in the past, that is the true quarterback competition. And they are really going to battle it out. And I don't think Trey is necessarily a lock to be quarterback 2. Does he have the opportunity to lock in quarterback 2? 100% he does. But that's on him. And we've talked about that in the past. He has to make that situation a reality, because let's face it, Kyle likes Sam. We've known this for a long time. And so that's where we're at. Is this team believes in Brock. The messaging from the team supports Brock as quarterback 1. They're doing their best to not diminish Trey Lance too much, continue to prop him up and continue to not try to tear him down completely. But at the end of the day, it's football ops time, and football ops are going to do what they believe is best for the team. and we're going to have to wait and see. And only that will be figured out in training camp. So we can spend all this time trying to pick apart these reports. Does this guy know what he's talking about? 49ers don't leak. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, the football ops, the football operations are going to be making the final calls, and those calls are going to be made at training camp. That's what it's going to come down to. That's it. It's going to come down to training camp. So but the problem is we got about a month. Teams have been announcing training camp dates. We are on the brink of hearing from the 49ers. I feel it in my bones. They haven't officially announced yet, but I saw like 6 other teams announced their training camp dates. Typically, the 49ers will hold their training camp practices at the end of July. So we're about a month out. From all the hypotheticals, all the trying to make sense. We're about a month out of that not even mattering. So just be patient. Be patient. Everything can change pretty darn quickly. But what we do know is that football ops, they're going to decide this all on the field. And that's what we gotta lean into. We're gonna continue to get milestones on Brock Purdy. We're gonna continue to hear the Sam Darnold narrative, and we're gonna hear the Trey chatter. It is what it is, and we got about a month left. And again, don't care where you sit on the fence. I really don't. Don't care if you're team Trey, team Brock, team Sam, team Potato. I don't care. What I care about is the 49ers doing what's best for their team. That's truly what I care about. Now, there's going to be a lot of conversations. Well, if we care about, what the 40, I get it. I think we can all agree that this quarterback situation has been tiresome. It's been something that just like is never ending. And I get it. You've got your feelings about who and what, where, when, and how. I get it. But nothing that doesn't change anything. The facts of the matter is there's no definitives until Brock is cleared. There's no definitives between Trey and Sam until we get to training camp. That's where the definitives are made. That's where the final evaluations are made. We can take things away from OTAs. We can look at OTAs and be like, "Ooh, we learned a lot from OTAs," but we're not going to know until the pads come on, helmets go on, and the bullets start flying. When we get into preseason, when I think Mayoko talked about it, again, Mayoko alluding to Trey Lance potentially getting traded to the Raiders because the joint practices being very important for Trey to show out in joint practices, to be able to showcase his growth. And we've talked about joint practices before. I was at joint practices last year with Minnesota. Joint practices are much more valuable than the actual preseason games. So that's what I think. That's where I think we're at is we can have all these conversations. We can pull up tape. We can watch the Texans game. We can watch the Cardinals game with Trey Lance. We can watch the last 8 games that Brock played. We can go into Sam's final tape with the Panthers, and we can watch it all and talk about stats and this, that, and the other thing. We won't know until training camp. So just be prepared. Like, we're going to talk about things are going to pop up. points are going to be made by certain people in the media. We're going to react to them. We're going to have thoughts on them. But just so you know, my thoughts pretty much from here on out, unless there's something that's really just like really definitive, which really hasn't really been definitive. We get a lot of uh I think, or based on what I've heard, this is the feel. Like that's kind of what we're talking about. So until anything is definitive, I'm still on the same warpath that until we know in training camp, that's when we're gonna know. That's when we're gonna know. So we gotta play it. Unfortunately, we gotta play it out. So we got a month more. Buckle in, put your big boy or big girl 49er pants on. And because I know you guys are avid 49er fans, you want to know everything because I want to know everything, just like you. And we have to be able to move forward, day by day with all these talking points. And again, what was the talking point on Friday from was it Mike? No, not was it Mike Florio? Is that his name? I'm blanking on everyone's name today. Florio said, "Prepare for a tug of war between Kirk Cousins, 49ers, and Rams next year." Kirk Cousins' batting average is like probably .003 right now when it comes to accurately predicting the 49ers quarterback situation. So there's that. But again, they're talking about it. They're talking about it. They are talking about it yet again. So be ready. Be ready. I don't believe the 49ers should. This is my take on Kirk Cousins. I don't think the 49ers should go in on Kirk. I would much rather have uh, Brock Purdy heading into year 3 of his rookie deal than paying Kirk Cousins $40 million guaranteed uh, a season to come over here and line up under the guard. I get Kyle. Kyle's probably I love Kyle. You guys know this. I love Kyle. I think Kyle's a phenomenal coach. Kyle might be the most stubborn human being on the face of the earth when it comes to quarterbacks. I agree with I agree with Kyle on probably like 99% of like the way he goes about football, team building, roster building, staff building. I agree with most of the moves. Uh, not a fan. Not the biggest fan of the quarterback handling. I'll be 100% honest there. I'm not the biggest fan. And this goes back to 2017. And that's a whole nother conversation. But uh, I hope that we don't land there. I hope one of these guys, I would imagine, I think the most likely outcome would be Brock. Brock plays well enough that Kirk doesn't become an option for just I don't see the money for it. Like it just feels like there's a whole nother like realm of just cap issues, a lot of issues. 49ers play in a lot of primetime games. He doesn't play well in prime time for whatever reason. Uh, so man, I think we're all in the same boat here. I think we're all in the same boat. We just want that. We just want the franchise to step up, take over, so we can start talking about things like Charlene desperately trying to get us away from the quarterback conversation. She says, "How about the 49ers running back room getting PFF best in the league?" Yes, 49ers have the best running back room in the league, and that's with a guy like TDP, who's a third rounder, who we don't really know who he is yet. And I would also imagine that a big part of that running back ranking is based on Christian McCaffrey being the best running back in the NFL and what they've seen from Elijah Mitchell. I don't think when I've seen these rankings, I don't see a lot of people give heavy value to Jordan Mason. And it's just because if you're not a die-hard 49er fan who watches everything, you might not know how good Jordan Mason is. But I do agree the 49ers have the best running back room in the NFL for sure. And again, goes back to the point of why Potato could potentially lead the San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl. All that Potato's got to do is find his role within the system, distribute the ball, and get it out on time, accurately, and 49ers offense goes extremely far. But that's the thing. It's like you can make the case. I think the 49ers have the best linebacking room in the NFL. You can make the case that they have one of the best wide receiver rooms in the NFL. You can make the case that they have one of the best safety rooms in the NFL. The 49ers roster is the most stacked it has ever been under Kyle Shanahan. It's the most stacked this roster has been since 2012. Since the days of the Tony Montana squad, when the 49ers special teams unit was like terrorizing the league. The NFL, the 49ers are deep right now. The 49ers are deep. And so again, it's why everything keeps coming back to the quarterback because it keeps being discussed. And so there's the spinoff of that, but the roster's here. Week 1 against the Steelers is going to be a phenomenal matchup. I think the Steelers are going to be a good team next year. I think Kenny Pickett is going to take the step forward. I really do think that guys like Najee Harris, Pickens, who else? Deontay Johnson. They added Allen Robinson, Pat Freiermuth, pretty decent O-line. Pittsburgh, pretty good. Pretty good. So, and the 49ers are starting on the road. So, Kirk Cousins or Mr. Potato Head? I'm going Mr. Potato Head because Mr. Potato Head can be had for probably like 1.3 million a year. And if you get Mr. Potato Head at 1.3 million a year, you can continue to spend and pay guys like Nick Bosa and Aaron Banks, who will be up, and Brandon Ayuk, who will be up. You could extend Christian McCaffrey. You could, you're gonna have to pay Talanoa Hufanga. Like that's the thing with the whole Kirk Cousins thing. It's like Talanoa Hufanga will be up soon. Brandon Ayuk will be up next year. You're gonna have guys that you have to pay. Dre Greenlaw, before you know it, is gonna have to need another contract. So I can understand why Kyle would like Kirk Cousins. I definitely understand it, but I don't like it. Just because I understand something doesn't mean I like it. I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. If you're really going to go for Kirk Cousins, do it again. Sell the future of the franchise. Go number 1, Caleb Williams. Like if you really truly aren't dead set on your quarterback risk it all. Risk it all, go Caleb Williams. Come on, Kyle. Like, why not? If you really just aren't satisfied with your quarterback room of Brock Purdy, Trey Lance, or Kirk Cousins, or not even, sorry, not Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, who wants to be Kirk Cousins. Do that. But that won't happen. Second time's a charm. It's got to keep swinging, right? Doesn't matter how many times you strike out. You still got to go back up to that plate. And you got to keep swinging. Sell it all, Caleb Williams. At least we know Caleb is going to be dope. It's going to happen. Caleb's going to be that guy for sure. No questions about it. No questions about it. Let it happen. Make it happen. But anyways, could you imagine talking about the quarterback for a whole nother year next year? Like getting through next season and then having to talk about it again. Woo! When they tell you that they say being a content creator is fun, they said being a content creator around the 49ers easy. They just make content for you. Be careful what you wish for, because you might be stuck talking about the quarterback for 70 years. It might happen. Just be careful what you wish for. Being a 49ers content creator, they write the content for you. Be careful what you wish for, because you'll be gray in the face. Still, Kyle Shanahan will still be here, and we're on like retreads of who knows what. Bro, it's wild. It's wild. It's wild. I don't know life as a content creator without talking about the quarterback position. I just don't know. Like, I don't know what it's like. I don't know what it's like to be the Chargers. See, Peter says, doesn't that make your job easier? I don't like talking about controversy. I know, I get it. You have all different types of creators. You have all different ways of being able to do this. I personally don't like talking about controversy or talking about the same controversy over and over again. So it actually doesn't make my job easier, because like today, I knew had to get on here and talk about the quarterbacks because of all the news that dropped yesterday. And I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. But I'm like, God, I feel like I have to. You know the vibes. I like to talk about what I want to talk about, and that's why this offseason has been challenging, is because we keep getting pulled back. And it's like I keep having to run through the ringer of like, there's Kyle's perspective, here's the 49ers perspective, here's fans perspective, here's media's perspective, here's my perspective, now we got to put it on a linear timeline, and we got to make it make sense, and you got to put your tinfoil hat on, and it's just like, oh my gosh, my goodness, it's unbelievable. But hey, gives us something to talk about, I guess. I don't know. I'd rather break down the roster or other things. And I'd rather put my mind to better use to be able to like think of creative things that we can talk about. Like, how about this? How about this? Here's something that's not quarterbacky. 49ers Nick Bosa. He will become the highest paid defender in NFL history. How many sacks will Nick Bosa have next year? Drop it in the chat. Curveball, non quarterback topic. Nick Bosa is probably going to get paid in the range of 33 to 35 million dollars on average a year, and well deserved. How many sacks is he getting this year? Just remember, you add Javon Hargrave, which is going to manipulate the way teams execute pass protection. I still believe Eric. Hold on. Hold on one second. Hold on one second. My Eric Armstead playing edge agenda is through the roof right now. I mean, can we look at this frame right here? My Eric Armstead conspiracy that he will be playing more edge this year just feels like it's at an all-time high right now. I mean, he looks lean. He's always been a leaner big guy. I mean, he's like 6'7". He's huge. He's massive. So I think the weight distribution is already, pretty decent. But again, we've been talking about who's going to play edge. We talked about Cleveland, we've talked about Drake. What about this guy? Again, you have Hargrave on the interior. That makes him more flexible to go other places. And I think we could see him on the edge more. But again, also, that I think all of that frees up Nick to get after the quarterback even more. I feel like he's got to get at least the 20 piece, man. At least the 20 piece this year. I wonder if Nick Bosa is angry with Kyle for taking Bosa out of the Washington game. Because I believe if Kyle kept Bosa in the Washington game, I think Nick gets to 20 sacks. But he took him out the Washington game where Nick was just feasting. And we know Nick ultimately fell short of his 20 sack goal. I really feel like if Kyle just let him hunt against Washington, he would have got it. That does Nick Bosa, is he upset about that? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see. We'll see. But this guy's going to be a problem. Beal. I mean, do you guys remember when D Ford wore that same helmet? He was one of the first guys to wear. I can't remember the name of this particular helmet. Kind of gives some. Now I'm not at all comparing Beal to D Ford, but just kind of like based on like the like sprinter stance and the helmet, I'm like, oh, a little vibey, a little D Ford vibey, maybe. I don't know. Fred, but this guy, I'm excited for this guy. Javon is going to change the complexion of the 49ers defensive line. It really is. And I really think that's what's going to help Eric find more success as well. I think Eric's going to find more production. I think everyone on the defensive line is going to find more production because of Javon Hargrave and because of the presence that he brings to the interior defensive line. And again, as an offensive lineman, like, yeah, having good quality edge rushers can definitely change the complexion of a game. But I would say, and again, I think that's why Aaron Donald is considered the best defender in the NFL, because he's consistently creating havoc up the interior. And when you create havoc up the interior, you're messing up the run game, you're messing up the passing, you're messing everything up if you can create havoc on the interior. Yes, we care about our edge rushers and our edge defenders, but when you have an elite level player on the interior, it changes things. It changes things. So I'm excited for Hargrave. I think the stunt games are going to change and evolve. Him and Eric are going to be interchangeable on stunts. So one, like Eric used to be the one crashing down. They'll both be able to swap out. They'll both be able to switch. You'll be able to have big time loopers. They'll be able to play a lot of games up front. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to the defense. Looking good out there. Oh, Mongo, Feliciano, Freddie. Look at Eric, man. Demo. This is probably one of the cleanest offensive line pictures I've ever seen. I mean, just the way the lights hitting the visor. You've got these little you got this. This is what happens when you hang out with Trent. You got the little arm swaggy, fire gloves, like swagged out offensive lineman. Gotta love it. Spencer Burford looking good. Looking good. Looking forward to it though. Don't let the quarterback discourse get you down. Don't let it get you down. I promise. This is going to be a fun training camp. We're so close. We're so close. I can't wait till that update comes out and we get our training camp dates and we start to really be able to like hone in on, we start in the envisioning of what training camp's going to look like. Super hyped. Super hyped. Do you guys have any other questions? Comments, questions, small little tangents that you'd care to go on? I'll turn it over to you in the chat. If you guys want to drive us in a certain direction, feel free. Thoughts, feelings, doesn't have to be about anything we've talked about, could be completely random. We get some of our best topics that way. But if there's anything that you would like to address, you can take that opportunity to drop it in the chat. I'll try my best to get to it. Peter says, Brad, how do you think the tight end room is going to look? I still think they're going to carry 4. I think Braden Willis is going to do enough to earn it. I think Latu, at least from what we've heard from OTAs, made some good plays, made some strides. I don't think either one of them showed up to tight end university, which was interesting. I think Kittle was the only 49ers tight end over there. But I do think they're still going to carry 4. I think it's going to be Warner. I think Dwelly's going to be the odd man out. I think although Latu and Willis provide probably upgrades in the passing game. I do believe that Warner's proven ability to block is going to be something that they might not feel comfortable with letting go just yet. So that's probably why they're going to carry 4, in my opinion. Because I do think they're going to keep all. I think they're going to keep 4. I think they're going to keep both the rookies, but I don't think they're going to feel, knowing Kyle, I don't think they're going to feel comfortable relying on Kittle and rookies. I just don't see that. So what I really see it as is it's going to be Kittle, Warner, and the 2 rooks. Keep 4, keep 5 wide receivers again. That's really how I see it. Dr. Pepper or Mr. Pibb? I'm probably going Dr. Pepper. Mr. Pibb's not bad, but definitely probably leaning Dr. Pepper if I had to pick. Jake Moody better live up to Robbie Gould standards of kicking field goals. True. I know that's the expectation. It's going to be interesting to see how Jake Moody slots in for sure. For sure. I mean, we're going to see CMC and Debo on the field a lot together. So you've seen it. It doesn't matter where they start on the field. They will rotate CMC out of the backfield and Debo into the backfield and vice versa. So I do think that is something that we'll see quite a bit of. Kittle and DeForest. It's Kittle and Buckner, D Buck at the Beer Olympics. I saw that. Thoughts on Niners Super Bowl? It's one of the beautiful things right now is that the 49ers control their own destiny. They've put themselves in a position where they will compete for a Super Bowl, and it's up to them to how far they go, how well they execute, and of course, how well they can stay healthy. That's really what it is. The 49ers are good. The 49ers are stacked. They have depth. They can withstand injury if it does happen. They have so much talent everywhere. The 49ers, I've talked about this before, like it's always cool to not have expectation because if you do good, it's a pleasant surprise, which is where I think, the 49ers were in 2019. In 2019, them going 13-3, that was a pleasant surprise. Did I think they were a good team? Yes, I thought they were a good team. But for them to go 8-0, then go finish the season 13-3, go to the Super Bowl, that wasn't the expectation. It wasn't going into that 2019 that it was like, oh, we should be better. But who knows? You saw what happened in 2018. So we don't really know. So there weren't a ton of expectations for the 49ers in 2019. But heading into this year, the expectations are high. For me personally, that's the highest they've ever been. And that's with the perceived issues at quarterback. I do expect the 49ers to challenge for a Super Bowl. That's just where we're at. Their team is good enough. They have enough experience at a lot of key places on the roster. The 49ers right now, it's Super Bowl or bust, in my opinion. And I don't think that's too crazy to think about or say or expect. Our boy's back. What's good, Hulky? He didn't Hulk smash off the channel. Glad you stuck around. He says, what player on the team that started last season will lose their spot this season? The first player that comes to mind is Elijah Mitchell. I think Elijah Mitchell, just because of the health issues that he's had, but because of those issues, I think Jordan Mason just has this momentum right now. He just has this. We know Jordan Mason is really talented, but he's also proven to show that he can be available. And right now, that's Elijah's biggest issue. So right now, I think the first one that comes to mind is Elijah Mitchell. I think Danny Gray can take Ray Ray's job. I think who else? I think Spencer Burford is for sure the front runner, but I'm not sleeping on Feliciano. Wait till we get into camp. Not sleeping on Feliciano. Feliciano's a dog, man. So I still expect, as long as Burford takes the steps forward that he should, he'll be the starting right guard. But I'm not sleeping on Feliciano. Who else? Linebacker 3, I expect it to be Oren Burks, but I'm not sleeping on Marcelino McCrary-Ball. To me, he feels like the biggest threat to Oren Burks for that starting weak side linebacker spot. Gibson is in a big time threat to lose his job to Jair Brown. I think Isaiah Oliver is already the starting nickel, so I think Womack would really have to show up in training camp to be able to beat Isaiah Oliver out. There's a couple. There's a couple where we could see a swing. But we'll see. Do I believe we are settled at right tackle? I believe we're fully settled for this season, 100%. I think Colton McKivitz for sure. I don't even think they're flinching at the idea that Colton McKivitz will be the guy. Like it's really not that big of a a debate, in my opinion. I think they're fully locked in on Colton McKivitz being the right tackle. Past this year, that'll be interesting. But this year, for sure, it's Colton McKivitz. Let's see. Can we better the win streak from last year? I don't know. That's hard. Win streaks are hard. So again, what the 49ers did last year was with Brock Purdy in that set of circumstances is pretty wild. Win streaks are hard. It can absolutely happen, but whew, they're difficult. They're difficult to pull off. Hot take will be you forgot to mention who you're talking about. You just said hot take will be a top 20 receiver this season. Who though? Who? Joey says, Brad, would you do the following? Montez Sweat on a 1-year deal for a 2024 second, third, and fifth. That's pricey. That might be a little too expensive for me. I like Montez Sweat. I don't like him enough to go second, third, and fifth, even though the 49ers will have a decent amount of draft capital. And even though they will have a decent amount of comp picks yet again, they will have additional third round. I don't know. The second's where I don't know. I think again he would fit. He would be able to definitely provide some depth and be a player that step in as a starter. But on a rental, knowing that they probably won't be able to pay him to give up a second, third, and fifth, I'd rather probably ride it out with Cleveland and Drake and Eric and see what I could get next year's draft to potentially fill in that spot. I definitely see the thought process though, but that'd be a tough one. That's a lot for me. Biggest surprise rookie taking charge. I don't know. I think it could be Braden Willis. I think Braden Willis could kind of surprise people. Being a 7th-round draft pick, where he was selected, being the second tight end that the 49ers selected with Kittle, I think he could be a surprise. I think Jalen Graham could be a surprise. Um, I remember I went on Krug's show and I said that, there's just something about Waggy that intrigues me. I haven't seen enough of him to have a definitive opinion, but I talked about it before, man. When you have a motor as a defensive end, and I don't think you can teach that. I don't think you can teach motor. You can tell people to go 150%. You can tell, but there's like this. I've played enough offensive line that there are guys that have relentless motors, and then there are guys that just don't know how to turn it off. It is constant. Waggy gives me those vibes. Like he doesn't have like elite physical tools. I don't think he's got good size, but what stood out to me the most was his motor. And for me, motor is huge into contributing success for like defensive ends and things like that. Of course, you have to be able to have a whole bag of pass rush moves. You want to have the length, you want to have the speed, you want to have the first step get off, you want to have the leverage, you want all those things. Of course, you do. But motor is huge. The unrelenting ability to give up on a play, whether it's second, third efforts, when that quarterback holds the ball a little bit too long, when you get good coverage on the back end, and you've got that edge who's just hand fighting, trying to rip, swim, and just keeps going. You've seen it. Defensive ends, they go hit their first move, they get stood up, and they just kind of look and they're like, all right, I'm gonna try to get in the passing lane or something. Like I'm gonna just kind of like, oh, try to. Is there a screen? Like I'm just gonna try to get in the passing lane. There are defensive ends. They get stopped their first move. They're onto their second. They're onto their third, and they're just churning to the point where they get the edge. Quarterback holds onto the ball a little bit too long, and they get home. And that's because they didn't necessarily win with talent. They won with a motor. That's kind of where Waggy kind of stands out to me. So he's interesting. The North Dakota State undrafted free agent guy. He's interesting. Man, we're gonna have some good talent. I mean, we don't talk about Quantrez Knight. We don't really talk about Deshaun Jameson. The defensive backs, Taylor Hawkins. Like we don't talk about those guys because they're most likely going to be practice squad guys. But they're talented, man. We got some nice talent on the back end that really doesn't get talked about a lot. Um, really, really don't. Who do you think will be the first choice of end opposite Bosa? I think it might be Eric Armstead. I really think it might. Because if your pass rushing, if your turbo package is Eric Armstead on the edge, let's say you kick Drake Jackson into the 3 tech, you have Hargrave in like the 1 eye, or you have him in the 0, and then you have Bosa. Like that's a pretty nasty defensive line right there. You got Eric Armstead and on the big end side, you've got Drake Jackson over the 3 tech, so he's over the guard. You have Hargrave in the A gap, or on with an even front, he's on the 3 tech as well. He's over the guard, so you have an even front. And then you've got Bosa in the wide 9, whether, playing outside the tight end. That's pretty. That's pretty. It's pretty nasty. I could see that for sure. I definitely could. Or you swap Eric and Drake, and you put Eric over the three, you put Drake outside. I think it could go either way. But because of the experience, for me, that's why again I keep coming back to like Eric playing edge. Like he looks like he's training to be an edge. He doesn't look like he's training to be an interior guy. He looks like he's training. He can play interior, but he looks like he's training to be an outside edge rusher. So, I think that is that is something that we could look into. Rick says, not sure what is worse, the NFL Network or pages like this regurgitating the same garbage every day. Pages like this, for sure, worse than the NFL Network. See, like we focus on one topic that maybe the NFL Network will only focus on for like 5 minutes. We'll spend all day talking about it. We'll spend all day going into the history books. We'll spend all day uh, tracking trends and aligning them with current topics. NFL Network will hit you with a 3-minute segment on it. We'll hit you with nonstop coverage of it. So, yeah, if you like hearing about your football team, this probably isn't the place for you. If you like to hear about all different kinds of 49ers content and you like all that type of stuff, this probably isn't the place for you. NFL Network is probably better for sure. Um, definitely. Yes, I think Danny Gray makes the roster for sure. I do. I definitely think Danny Gray makes the roster. I think he starts challenging Ray Ray for his job. That's what I think. That's what I think. Shout out Gang. We'll spend 7 years talking about a quarterback. This is true. This is factual. This is very, very true. NFL and ESPN are biased networks towards the Niners. Well, so the thing is, it's like when you're talking major network, they have their own set of standards to abide by. They have their own set of standards. They have their own uh, things that they're trying to accomplish outside of just talking about a team based on interest. Like there's a very definitive strategy involved that goes beyond talking points. They're in the business of making money. Not that everyone isn't, but at a level that they are, whoo, that's number one. That's number one. They got to make money, baby. They gotta keep viewership, and they know in today's age that hey, the common fan, what draws ratings right now? It's going to be the quarterback. It's going to be the quarterback discussion. It's going to be the Cowboys. It's going to be Patrick Mahomes. So it's going to be maybe some Philly stuff, some Travis Kelsey stuff, maybe some George Kittle stuff. That's what it is. What do I think Kyle has to do to avoid being on the hot seat? 7 years is a long time not to get a Super Bowl. I guess this is how I would preface it is who's he on the hot seat by? Is he on the hot seat by the fan base, by media, or by ownership? Because I think all things have a strongly different uh different meter or temperature gauge of what they would consider hot. I view it as this from an internal standpoint in regards to Dr. York, Jed York, Denise York, the main tripod of 49ers ownership and primary decision makers. I don't think that as long as this team is in the playoffs competing, I don't think Kyle will be on the hot seat because what that ownership group has to look back on, they can point to the Chip Kelly days. They can point to the Tom Sula days. They can point to the Nolan days. They can point to um the Erickson days. They can point to the end of the Mariucci era. They have plenty of experience not winning, right? It's not like this ownership group just is expecting to get championships laid upon them. They aren't the DeBartolos. The DeBartolos won all the championships. The DeBartolos, when they were in control, Eddie D, that is, was the one who set the tone of the culture and who he hired and all those different types of things. And that's not a shot at the Yorks, but it's just the fact of the matter. I think is that you know during the time period in which the Yorks have owned the 49ers, the most success that they have had was with um, Jim Harbaugh. We saw how that ended, and most recently with Kyle Shanahan. So my thing is this: as long as this team is continuing to be competitive, as long as this team is still continuing to put out a good quality product on the field, and they're making the playoffs, I don't even sense Kyle's seat getting warm. I just really don't. I really don't. They might not love all the decisions. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Yorks are going to just say that they love everything that Kyle has done, how they managed, the recent quarterback thing. But you can also see that for Hargrave, for example, they aren't big time spenders in free agency. And both Lynch and Lynch went to Jed and was like, we need a difference maker on the interior. We need to spend some money. We need to drop some coin. And if you are concerned about your group of football operations, um, and treading lightly and being hesitant into what decisions that that's not the vibe I'm getting. The vibe I'm getting is do what you need to do. Like you guys know what you need to be successful at, and I'm gonna give you that leash to do it. Now they gave them the leash to make the trade to go get Trey, and it doesn't look like it worked out. So, but they're still giving this group the leash to go sign Javon Hargrave. So to me, you know, there's a lot of different factors than just I think, finding your franchise quarterback or whatever. Um, but when it comes to what do I think Kyle has to achieve to avoid being on the hot seat, playoffs. As long as Kyle's in the playoffs, I don't think it'll even be a thought process, regardless of how the decisions have played out at the quarterback. I really believe that Jed looks at Kyle, looks at the staff that's been built. They look at Queasy, they look at Rand, they look at our guy over there in Washington, 3 GMs turned out of the front office. They look at Mike. They look at uh, man, why am I blanking on everyone's name today? They look at D'Amico. They look at the head coach. They look at the tree of coaches. Like they look at Kyle as a guy who can bring on an Anthony Lynn as just a running back coach. They can bring guys like Greasy out of the booth. There's there's like a real cachet that the Shanahans have. Like, and I hear a lot about like, but they're part of the in crowd. The Shanahans are part of the in crowd. They know everyone in the league. They've got the respect of everyone in the league, which gives Jed the credibility that he ultimately wants. So as long as Jed still and Kyle are working together and they're able to have that form of credibility to the organization, to the franchise, I think they'll be fine. I think it's if you have like a Super Bowl or bust type roster and you severely like miss the boat, which means you don't make the playoffs, you're not challenging for a division title. Those are like you get beat by the Cardinals, you get beat by the Rams. That is where the seat gets warm. But as long as Kyle is taking care of business within division, which I think he will, and is constantly challenging for division titles and top seeding in the playoffs, I don't think his seat is warm at all. And that's potentially with one of the worst trades in recent history. If Trey Lance isn't the 49ers quarterback in the next 2 years, that trade will go down regardless of whatever. It's just going to go down as one of the worst trades in NFL history. That's just how that's just how it works, right? That everything gets graded. We go back into the past and we go back and we use the revisionist history to grade things. And you know they already gave up an unprecedented amount to go get Trey, and for Trey to not work out, um, to the point where it's kind of like they're like, well, it's almost like they've seen enough of Trey where they're like, we're actually a little bit concerned about putting him out on the field. Like we've actually seen quite enough of Trey in practice where we are actually a little bit, we don't really want to put him out there, if that makes sense. Like that's kind of the vibe that I get. It's like we know like they always say we don't know what Trey is, but it's almost like they do know what Trey is, and that's why they're very hesitant. That's why they brought back Jimmy Garoppolo last year. That's why they kept Jimmy around. That's why, and they were right on that. You know what I mean? Like for all the crap that we talked about Jimmy Garoppolo, not me. I don't talk that much crap about Jimmy. I had at least certain level of respect for Jimmy. I didn't love him. He wasn't my ideal quarterback, but I knew they could win with him. They kept him for a reason. They hedged, and the hedge worked, which means they made the right decision. They made the correct decision, which was despite how it may have impacted Trey, it was for the betterment of the organization. And luckily, they had Brock. Like, luckily, that worked out. But listen, man, they told us last year. They hedged last year. They were concerned last year. They were concerned. Like, listen, man, I went to joint practices, and 49ers defense was phenomenal. But I also couldn't tell if the 49ers offense was not good or if the Vikings defense was really good. It was really hard to determine, one, because they were 2 fields over, so I didn't have a close. It's really hard to see, um, the 49ers offense versus the Vikings defense, but what you could see is them not moving the ball. They've talked about just that offseason period of just like there was no rhythm within the offense. They couldn't find a rhythm, and and they weren't going to let Jimmy Garoppolo go for nothing. So rather than letting Jimmy Garoppolo go for nothing, they brought him back. Turned out to be a hedge, and the hedge worked. So we'll see. But for the original question, what does Kyle have to do to be on the hot seat? Which is a great question, by the way. I actually might have to clip that and post it as its own individual topic because that was a good question. I think he has to make the playoffs. If he makes the playoffs, I think his seat is not warm. I think the only reason why Kyle's seat would start to get warm um, is because they don't make the playoffs, and then it's compounded on top of the issues with the quarterback. Then the tidal wave will come. As long as he's in the playoffs and continually winning games with whoever, Kyle's going to be safe. I don't think Kyle will have anything to worry about. It's if they aren't successful and leading into the playoffs is when that is going to happen. What is this? This is Eduardo says, "Bruh, stop it. The kid needs to play this. Needs to play. Period. This team thinks they're win now, and they are not." I would respectfully disagree with you 100%. They are win now. They are probably the most win now set up roster in the NFL. So respectfully disagree with you on your second point. First point, kid needs to play. I agree. He needs to play. So yes, kid needs to play. Them not being a win now, 100% disagree. So we're one for two on opening points. He said, and then he says, you get beat by a team that went through the process and developed their quarterback, Philly, the standard. Okay, so we're 2 for 3. I don't disagree with the fact that Philly did a phenomenal job developing Justin Hurts. They did, and they deserve credit for that. Do the 49ers need to beat them? Of course they need to beat them. But this seems like a pro Trey Lance tweet, or not a tweet, a comment, which, no, what? Oh, that sucks, man. Super random. Former NFL quarterback Ryan Mallett tragically drowned today in Florida. He's 35 years old, man. RIP. I remember when he was coming out. That's crazy. He's 35? Dang. I remember he was coming out. I think he was coming out of Arkansas. And I think he played for the Patriots. Thought he was gonna be decent, but man, that's sad, man. That's tough. Did I say Justin Hurts? Probably. I'm not on point with names today. We aren't a win now team, Brad. Let's be honest. Being close doesn't mean we are win now. Only time we were win now was 2019. Unless Kyle is our head coach, we aren't winning the Super Bowl. Let's be real. What does that mean? What does that mean? How does that make sense? That doesn't make sense. So the 49ers, who were again, I have ADHD, borderline dyslexic, so I can misinterpret things. It's not very hard for me to do that. So I'm going to put that out there first of all. I could be misinterpreting this, but maybe I'm not. Oh, okay. We have some clarification. I meant isn't, bro. It was a typo. Okay. So now I got to figure out isn't into the context of what he said. We aren't a man. You might just have to retype that. You might just have to retype that because I meant isn't. What isn't? You said we aren't a win. We aren't a win, Brad. Let's be honest. Being close doesn't mean we are win now. Only time we were win again. I don't know. I think I'm still more I think appreciate you trying to clarify. I'll give you another opportunity to clarify. Still very confused how I I'm I'm confused. I'm confused. But I think the thing that you're not confused about was the only time we were win now was 2019. I'm just going to pick apart that point. How is this team any lesser win now than 2019? Do you I talked about how in 2019 that was a surprise that we went 13-3. I did like a little piece on that, like how in 2019, after do you remember the record in 2017? We went 0-9. Then Jimmy comes in, we rattle off 5 wins. Yeah, our savior is here. 2018, we open up with the with the Vikings? Jimmy looked okay. Then we had what? Detroit week 2. A little shaky. Jimmy a little shaky. 2018 week 2 against Detroit. They come away with the W. National Tight End Day started on that day. The week 3, 49ers travel to the Chiefs. Jimmy didn't have that great of a game, but he's trying to put together a comeback victory. He, instead of going out of bounds, goes head up with a defensive back, tears his ACL, and 2018 was cooked. Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, 2018 was chalked. So to then say only time we were win now was 2019 with Jimmy Garoppolo coming off an ACL, never once in his career playing a full season start to finish. We had Mike Persons at right guard. We had Weston Richburg, who in 2018 did not have a good year after getting paid. Jet McKinnon, who got paid, couldn't get on the field. So our running backs were Tevin Coleman, a Raheem Mostert, who had yet to pop off yet, who was still primarily a gunner on special teams. We had Matt Breida, who showed promise, but that was it, just showed glimpses. We did have Kittle at that point. But we had a rookie Debo Samuel, cooked Dante Pettis, Kendrick Bourne. Like, heading into 2019, we had high hopes. We had Richard Sherman. We had Fred Warner turning into a guy. Dre Greenlaw, we had no clue what Dre Greenlaw was as a 5th-round draft pick. Of course, the defensive line. We knew what the defensive line was, but Akello Witherspoon, Emmanuel Mosley was the guy who ended up taking over for E-Man. Kwaski Ward, yeah, we had high hopes for 2019, but no way you can say 2019 was more win now and 2023 is not. Like, that just doesn't make sense. The 49ers, we know what happened in the NFC Championship game last year. What did they do the year prior to that? NFC Championship. So you're saying off 2 consecutive NFC Championship games, a roster that has gotten better, more experience, more depth, is not win now. But the 2019 team was the win now team. That is not correct revisionist history. That's not correct revisionist history. It's not. The reason why I say we aren't a win now team because we got to the NFC Championship game 3 times. I'm not saying we aren't capable of winning, but we aren't a win now because we don't. Yeah. Yep. 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 Well, where do we go from here? Because yep. I think this is where we say agree to disagree. I don't know what we're disagreeing on or agreeing on, but you know what? Agree to disagree because I don't know. I don't know what was, I don't know what that was. So the 49ers were more win now in 2019. They're not win now because they went to 3 NFC Championship games in 4 years. Makes sense. Makes sense. It's hard to say much because of the limit on YouTube. I mean, I feel like you said a lot. Like, I'm trying. You can tell I'm putting an effort here. I'm putting an effort here to understand what you're talking about. I'm really trying to pull all my knowledge together of this team, of covering them for the last 6 years, 7 years. I think this is just one of those things where I appreciate your attempts, but I think I'm understanding what you're trying to say. I just don't necessarily agree. And that's okay. That's okay. We don't have to agree. We allow parody here. We allow there to be multiple opinions. So you're entitled to yours. I don't necessarily agree. I definitely think the 49ers are a win now. And I tried. Hey, I tried. Robert Davis says, I don't know who the QB will be, but I'm a Niner fan. I'm a Niner fan too. I don't know who the quarterback will be. I assume it will be Brock, but hey, man, I've lived long enough under Kyle Shanahan to understand it could be anyone. It could be a potato. It could be a potato. And I think that's a perfect segue. Thank you to everyone for tapping in today and joining me on yet another just fulfilled, enlightening 49ers conversation about the quarterback. Another win for us. Another win for us. Another, again, one day closer to training camp. I cannot wait. I freaking cannot wait so we can actually talk about things that are happening in front of us than just spinning our wheels here. But still, I hope you had a good time. Grab your cookies on the way out. Drop a potato in the chat. Potato for quarterback one. Appreciate all you guys as always for vibing with. Again, agree, disagree, doesn't matter. I do appreciate everyone for tapping in. Again, entertaining conversation to say the least. Appreciate all y'all. Hey, we'll do it again tomorrow. Why not? Appreciate you guys. I'm out of here. Peace. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Love to